Frank Turner, who's 14 years old, had been walking 6 miles to school for the last 6 months. This started when their family car was taken away because they couldn't make payments. Frank's parents always told him to go to school no matter what, and that's exactly what he did. The Turner family had been going through some tough times of late, and it resulted in them losing the one thing that they needed the most: the family car. Now, Frank's parents had to take several buses to get to and from work, and it caused so much stress for everybody in the family. Frank hated that his family was in this situation. Now that his parents and 2 other siblings who were in high school took the bus, there wasn't always enough money to go around. Therefore, Frank ended up walking to school because his parents couldn't afford for all of them to take the bus. Frank didn't mind, he liked walking through the neighborhoods, but he knew that the walk to school was a long one. Missouri had some harsh winters, and Frank prayed that his family would be able to get the car back before then. He was dreading having to walk through the rain and snow. But in the end, he had no choice. His parents were very strict when it came to his and his siblings' education, and they wanted them all to graduate high school. They always talked about how not many family members could make it to graduation. Their circumstances always got the better of them. But Frank's father, Michael, only wanted the best for his children and vowed to watch them walk on the stage to receive their diplomas. And with Frank being their only son, he had high hopes for him. One morning, Frank arrived particularly late to school. His teacher, Mr. Walker, could see that he was panting and out of breath. It looked like he had been running. Frank was a great student and never missed a day of school. So when Mr. Walker noticed his empty seat, he became worried. But he was relieved when Frank eventually burst through the classroom door. "Frank, are you okay? You're never late." Frank couldn't catch his breath to even answer, so Mr. Walker promptly handed him a glass of water. As soon as he was composed, he replied, "I missed my bus, sir, so I had to run all the way here." "It won't happen again, sir," Frank promised. Mr. Walker knew how dedicated Frank was, and he took his word for it. But somehow, something at the back of his mind told him that something was wrong. But Frank looked all right, and he seemed to be doing well. But that would soon change when he noticed how Frank's focus and grades had begun slipping. Mr. Walker knew how important an education was, especially in the low to middle-income families in the community. He himself grew up in such a household, and the only way he got out was by educating himself and finishing school. He knew he wanted to become a teacher to help other kids who were facing the same issues he did as a kid. As the days went by, Mr. Walker couldn't shake off the nagging feeling of concern for Frank. He observed the once vibrant student gradually losing his enthusiasm for learning. Frank's assignments started to lack his usual effort, and his test scores plummeted. Mr. Walker decided it was time to take action. He scheduled a meeting with Frank's parents, hoping to uncover the reason behind their son's sudden decline in academic performance. The meeting day arrived, and Mr. Walker sat across from Frank's parents, Michael and Anna Mae Turner, in the school's conference room. Nervously, they exchanged greetings, their worried expressions mirroring Mr. Walker's concerns. "Thank you for taking the time to meet with me," Mr. Walker began. "I've noticed that Frank's grades have been dropping recently, and I wanted to discuss it with you." Michael and Anna Mae exchanged glances, their faces filled with the weight of their struggles. "We've been going through some tough times lately," Michael admitted. "We lost our car a few months ago, and it's been challenging for the whole family." As the conversation continued, Michael and Anna Mae shared the details of their financial difficulties. They explained how their limited income made it impossible to afford transportation for the entire family, forcing Frank to walk to school each day. Touched by their honesty and the love they had for their son's education, Mr. Walker felt a surge of determination to help the Turner family overcome this obstacle. He knew he couldn't change their circumstances entirely, but he could make a difference in Frank's life. He wanted to do something for him to motivate him to continue coming to school. After the meeting, Mr. Walker couldn't stop thinking about Frank's long walks to school and the toll he was taking on his academic performance. That night, a sudden hunch struck him as he lay awake in bed. "Maybe," he pondered, "there's something more I can do to support Frank and his family." Mr. Walker had a plan up his sleeve. The following day, Mr. Walker spent hours researching possible solutions to alleviate the Turner family's transportation burden. He reached out to local community organizations, seeking assistance in providing Frank with a bicycle, hoping it would make his daily commute easier. He hoped that this would motivate Frank to keep going. Through his efforts, Mr. Walker discovered a charity that donated bicycles to underprivileged students. Filled with hope, he submitted an application on behalf of Frank. He had detailed the family's situation and the impact it had on the boy's education. He hoped that they would be able to help him and the family's plight. It was the least that he could do for them. Days turned into weeks, and just as Mr. Walker was starting to lose hope, he received a call from the charity. They informed him that a generous donor had read Frank's story and was deeply moved by his determination. Mr. Walker was overjoyed that there was someone willing to help his cause. Now he could finally help Frank and his family. The donor, who wished to remain anonymous, had decided to not only provide Frank with a brand new bicycle, but also contribute towards purchasing a reliable minivan for the Turner family. Mr. Walker couldn't believe the generosity of this person. He wished that he could thank him in person and tell him what this all meant to him and the Turner family. Mr. Walker could hardly contain his excitement. He contacted Frank's parents and invited them to a meeting at the school. With a twinkle in his eye, he shared the incredible news about the donation, emphasizing the positive impact it would have on Frank's daily journey to school. The Turners couldn't believe that Mr. Walker would go to so much trouble for their son. They were beyond grateful. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Michael and Anna Mae could hardly believe their ears. Tears streamed down their faces as they realized the incredible support they were receiving. They had never received this amount of help from anyone before, and it truly meant the world to them. They were happy to know that Mr. Walker was looking out for Frank. On a sunny afternoon, Mr. Walker organized a special assembly for the entire school to witness the life-changing surprise. Students filled the auditorium with whispers of anticipation, unaware of the secret that awaited them. As Frank entered the stage, accompanied by Mr. Walker, he noticed his parents seated in the front row, their eyes brimming with emotion. The assembly fell silent as Mr. Walker took the microphone. "Students," Mr. Walker began, his voice filled with pride, "today we gather to celebrate a remarkable young man who has shown incredible resilience in the face of adversity." He proceeded to share Frank's story, emphasizing his determination to overcome obstacles and pursue his education no matter the circumstances. Frank stood there in disbelief. He couldn't believe what was happening. The auditorium erupted with applause, and the students' admiration for Frank filled the room. Amidst the cheers and admiration, Mr. Walker turned his attention toward Frank's parents, inviting them to join him on stage. With gratitude and joy in their eyes, Michael and Anna Mae rose from their seats and stood beside their son, their hearts brimming with appreciation for the community's support. Then it was time for the moment they had all been waiting for. With a dramatic flourish, Mr. Walker unveiled a brand new bicycle, glistening in the spotlight. The audience erupted into cheers and applause, congratulating Frank on his well-deserved gift. Frank covered his face. He was overwhelmed with emotion. He had no idea that there were so many people out there rooting for him. Frank approached the bicycle, running his hand along its shiny frame. He knew that this gift would change his daily routine and allow him to focus more on his studies. Mr. Walker stepped forward and handed Frank a set of keys, a smile stretching across his face. "But that's not all," he announced. "Thanks to a generous donor, your family will also be receiving a minivan to help with transportation." The audience gasped in astonishment, and Frank's parents broke down in tears, their gratitude overflowing. They hugged each other tightly, and the weight of their struggles momentarily lifted. Together, the Turner family and the entire school community celebrated the power of compassion and generosity. They were so thankful to Mr. Walker for everything that he had done for their family. In the weeks that followed, Frank's life transformed. With his new bicycle, he arrived at school with ease, his face beaming with joy. He had regained his focus and determination, his grades steadily improving once again. Meanwhile, the Turner family's new minivan became a symbol of hope, relieving the stress of their daily commutes and allowing them to spend more quality time together.